One of the most important parts of being in ministry, as I have experienced it, largely came from watching my parents in ministry. My father was an itinerant elder, a pastor, a presiding elder in the AME church for 46 years. He gave his life to the church and to the work of justice as he understands it to be mandated by the law of God. And so I followed in that tradition because that's the tradition I was raised in. But not only because it was the tradition I was raised in, because see, I left home at the age of 18, went to Howard University and wanted to get as far away from the church as possible. In large part because of the level of hypocrisy and inconsistency with the principles of justice and fairness and equality as I had been taught them in my home. So getting as far away from the church as possible, you know how God does things, has a way of kind of always pulling you back in. And so my father in ministry, Lee Washington at Reed Temple AME Church in Lanham, Maryland, at the time, they're now in Greenbelt, Maryland, was the one to kind of help me to see that I could run as much as I wanted to, but ultimately God still had a hold of me. So when I came out here to Los Angeles in 1994 and 95, I was completely new to the West Coast. First time on the West Coast. First time trying to make sense out of all of my career aspirations around movies, around the film industry, and this calling that God had on my life. Well, my father, Reverend Frank R. Satchel Sr., and my father in ministry, Lee Washington, both said, you've got to go look up Chip Murray. I came here. I went to Fame. Pastor Murray took me in like his own, introduced me to the community in a way that kept me from feeling isolated. I was working at TriStar Pictures at the time and quite honestly had no connection to the black community in Los Angeles. It was because of Pastor Murray and his ministry, his relevance in the community, that I was able to make real roots in the community and really build what has become for me a wonderful opportunity to be here. Now, admittedly, I did leave LA. I went, did some other things, came back. But I do still kind of rely on that connection, that being able to go back to Fame, even though I'm serving at Second AME Church now, I'm able to go back to Fame and feel like I'm at home. I'm able to connect with Pastor Whitlock just on word of mouth and know that this is a part of my extended family because that is what the church has been for me. Unfortunately, a lot of the folks that I work with in Black Lives Matter have never had that type of connection. A lot of the young people that I have worked with through the Black Lives Matter movement have been rejected from day one by our wonderfully religious and pious black folks in the black church particularly. And we have to do something as a church, as a community, to restore our community, starting first with the people whose hearts we are responsible for breaking.
Come on. Amen. Come on.
When I started working with Black Lives Matter, I did so in large part because I felt that it was a part of what God is calling me to, calling the church to, and that is to get outside of the comfort of those four walls in our beautiful hats and our beautiful Sunday garments and get dirty. And so I'm wearing my suit today because I feel like I have to often to communicate with folks and to be received in the way that we need to be received. But I want you to know that at some point, we're going to have to put the suits away. I'm so glad to look around the room today and see so many of you comfortable, to see so many of you in sneakers and jeans. It's so nice to see people just let all the pretense go and be who we really are, because that is what our community needs, authenticity, not only in our personal selves, but also in the gospel that we call the gospel of Jesus Christ, which we often follow under some other pretenses, okay? Now, today I'm going to be talking to you about Black Lives Matter. I wasn't asked to come here and preach. I was asked to come here and be authentically who I am, and part of who I am is preacher. So I'm sharing to you, as God has revealed to me, the call for us to affirm that Black Lives Matter. What is Black Lives Matter? What is important, I think, for us to understand is that Black Lives Matter is not a hate group. It is not what we see in the media. What we see in the media is shaped by the architects of the media. Part of the reason that I teach in communication is because I recognize that media is a very important interlocking system that has been a part of our oppression and repression, not just as Black people, but as brown people, as people of all sorts of ethnicities represented here in the United States who have been really struggling to get the foot off of our necks as we go forward in this work of justice. So what Black Lives Matter is a movement working. Working is important, right? Working, being the first word in that sentence, working for a world where Black lives are no longer systemically and intentionally targeted for demise. We don't believe that the killings of our young people in our neighborhoods and on our streets, the imprisonment of our young people in the prisons all over this country, the court systems that are set up to not provide any kind of fair and adequate defense for the people who are accused of crime. We don't consider all of these as coincidences. We see them as a long and targeted, intentional and systematic effort to eliminate Black and brown people as a political, economic, and social threat to the powers that be, in the same way that Pastor Murray was talking about earlier. So when we're looking at what is happening in our communities, we're not targeting one thing at a time. We have a multi-pronged strategy. And some of the things that you see in the media are things that are just one prong of our strategy. We have other approaches to civic engagement and into achieving justice. We are affirming our contributions to this society, to our humanity, to our resilience in the face of deadly oppression. We are affirming who we are and what we bring to the table authentically, naturally, and organically. We are a people who can sing our way through the struggles and trials of our times because we have a hope that is greater and bigger than these little things that we encounter along the way. But when those little things start to add up and suddenly we see our children who don't want to come to church anymore, who don't want to be seen with us in public anymore, those who don't want to identify in the way that we are most comfortable with them identifying, those young people who are different because of their choices or their orientation around sex and sexuality, those of our children who might be somehow or another different because of national origin or because of language or because of ethnic or national issues. We're talking about issues of ability. We're talking about cognitive differences and emotional differences and physical differences. We are talking about how we can be authentic around issues of justice in a way that is holistic and that does not elevate one group at the cost of all others. So Black Lives Matter is first and foremost putting Black lives front and center. Absolutely. No doubt. No apology. What we are doing, however, is recognizing that all Black lives matter. And in acknowledging all Black lives mattering, we must acknowledge that all brown lives matter and all Asian lives matter and all of our brothers and sisters matter as they are struggling with these issues of social inequity and justice. So Black Lives Matter is putting our sweat, equity, and love being central, putting our sweat, equity, and our love into effect for Black people in creating a political project, taking the hashtag off of social media and putting it in the streets, in the communities, in the lives of the people who need it most. This is as much a part of ministry as anything I could possibly imagine. So I'm asking you to be a part of with us, calling for Black lives to matter as a rallying cry to all Black lives mattering, all lives striving for liberation and justice.